The courtroom felt like ice that day. Judge Rivera leaned forward with an expression of thinly veiled skepticism. "Why would a child want to stay with her?" he asked, gesturing toward me with his pen. My ex-husband Caleb didn't even try to hide his smirk, his Italian suit worth more than 3 months of my rent. His lawyer, Ms. Winters, nodded approvingly as if the judge had just confirmed what they'd been arguing all along. That's when it happened. My 7-year-old daughter, Phoenix, small for her age and usually hiding behind my leg in public, stood up. Her voice came out surprisingly clear and strong. "I brought the video of what he does at night," she said, clutching her pink tablet with the purple butterfly case. The courtroom fell silent. Every eye turned to my little girl's face. Judge Rivera's brow furrowed, Caleb's smirk vanished, and his lawyer froze mid-nod. In that moment, everything changed. My name is Jade Roberts. 6 months ago, I was just a night shift nurse at Mercy General, raising Phoenix on my own after Caleb walked out when she was barely 2. For 5 years, he sent occasional birthday cards and made sporadic child support payments that never quite arrived on time. Phoenix and I built our life without him. Weekend trips to the Children's Museum, bedtime stories where she'd insist on making up the endings, and our tradition of Sunday morning pancakes shaped like whatever animal she requested. "Mommy, the elephant's trunk looks like a noodle." Phoenix would giggle, her missing front teeth making her smile even more precious. Then everything changed when Caleb's tech company went public. Suddenly, he wanted to be involved. At first, it was just dinner once a month, then weekend visits. Then came the custody papers claiming I was negligent and emotionally unstable. "This is bullshit," my neighbor Elena said when I showed her the papers, her hands trembling more than mine. "He can't just waltz back in after all these years." But he could. And he did. With his new wife, Diane, standing adoringly by his side, Caleb painted a picture of himself as the concerned father, worried about his daughter living in our modest 2-bedroom apartment while I worked night shifts to keep us afloat. "Phoenix deserves stability," he told the judge during our first hearing, "a proper home with parents who are present, not shuffled between babysitters while her mother sleeps all day." What the court didn't see was Phoenix's face when she returned from her first weekend at Caleb's mansion in Brookhaven. The way she clutched her stuffed rabbit like it might be taken away. How she burst into tears when I asked her if she had fun at Daddy's big house, something that had never happened before. "I don't want to go back, Mommy," she whispered against my shoulder that night. "Mr. Bear doesn't like it there." I knew then something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong until the day my little girl stood up in court and changed everything. The custody battle intensified faster than I could have imagined. What started as Caleb requesting alternate weekends transformed into a full-blown petition for primary custody. His lawyer, Ms. Winters, came armed with detailed affidavits and financial statements at every hearing. Ms. Roberts works 3 12-hour night shifts weekly at Mercy General, she stated to Judge Rivera. During these periods, Phoenix is passed between various caregivers, creating an unstable environment for a child her age. What she deliberately omitted was that those various caregivers were Elena, my neighbor of 5 years who Phoenix adored, and my sister Mia, who lived 20 minutes away. People who loved Phoenix who had been in her life since birth. The court-appointed evaluator visited my apartment on a Tuesday afternoon. Her eyes lingered on the water stain in the hallway ceiling, the mismatched furniture, the stack of medical textbooks beside my bed as I worked toward my nursing practitioner license. She made notes about the size of Phoenix's bedroom, though she failed to comment on the hand-painted solar system I'd created on her ceiling, or the reading nook we'd built together from an old bookshelf. "You work nights?" she asked, her tone making it sound like an accusation rather than a question. "It's the shift with the highest pay differential," I explained. "I'm home when Phoenix gets out of school. We have dinner together every night before I leave." The evaluator just nodded and wrote something down. Meanwhile, Caleb presented himself as Father of the Year material. His lawyer submitted photos of Phoenix's room in his Brookhaven mansion, a princess-themed space with custom furniture and a closet full of clothes with tags still attached. They talked about the private school she could attend, the swimming lessons, the French tutor. "It's in the child's best interest to live in an environment where her potential can be fully realized," Ms. Winters argued. After each court appearance, I'd drive home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Elena would be waiting with Phoenix, usually coloring or playing with sidewalk chalk in our small concrete patio. "How'd it go?" Elena would ask quietly while Phoenix was distracted. I couldn't even answer most days. The changes in Phoenix became impossible to ignore after her third weekend at Caleb's. She started having nightmares, waking up crying for me. She developed a habit of hiding her favorite toys before leaving for his house. "Why are you putting Mr. Bear in the laundry hamper, sweetie?" I asked one Friday afternoon. "So he's safe until I come back," she whispered, not meeting my eyes. When I picked her up on Sunday evenings, Diane would hand her over with a tight smile. "She was very difficult this weekend," she'd say within Phoenix's earshot. "Wouldn't eat her dinner. Threw a tantrum at bedtime. Perhaps she needs more discipline at home." Phoenix would remain silent in the car until we were at least halfway home. "Ms. Diane doesn't like my voice," she finally told me one night. "She says little girls should be quiet unless they're spoken to." There were other signs, too. Phoenix started wetting the bed again, something she hadn't done since she was 4. She began chewing her fingernails until they bled. Her first-grade teacher, Mrs. Kennedy, called me for a conference. "Phoenix seems withdrawn lately," she explained, showing me artwork my daughter had created during free time. The once colorful pictures were now mostly dark scribbles. "Is everything okay at home?" "We're going through some changes," I said carefully. "Her father is back in the picture." Mrs. Kennedy's expression softened. "She mentioned that. She also asked me if children have to live with their daddies if their daddies are mean." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" "That children should live where they feel safe and loved," Mrs. Kennedy replied. "I think you should know that yesterday during recess, she was sitting alone. When I approached, she was rehearsing what sounded like court testimony." That night, after Phoenix fell asleep, I called my sister Mia in tears. "I'm going to lose her, aren't I? How do I fight someone with his resources?" "You fight with the truth," Mia said firmly. "Whatever is happening at Caleb's house, we need to find out." What I didn't know then was that Phoenix had already started gathering evidence in her own 7-year-old way. The truth was coming, and it would silence everyone who had tried to silence her. I knew something was very wrong when Phoenix came home from Caleb's with a small bruise on her wrist. It was Sunday evening, just after dinner time, and her eyes were puffy from crying. "What happened to your arm, sweetie?" I asked, kneeling down to examine the purplish mark. Phoenix pulled her sleeve down quickly. "I fell," she mumbled, but wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, after her bath, I noticed she was unusually quiet while I brushed her hair. Normally, this was our special time for silly stories and giggles. "Phoenix, you know you can tell me anything, right?" I said, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Anything at all." She nodded slowly, then turned to face me. "Mommy, is it bad to take videos of people without asking?" My heart skipped. "Well, that depends. Why do you ask?" Phoenix's lower lip trembled. "I did something that might make Daddy really mad." She reached under her pillow and pulled out the pink tablet, the one Caleb had given her for educational games. With small, careful fingers, she opened a hidden folder labeled Homework Pictures. "I pretended to be asleep," she whispered. But I wasn't. The video was dark and slightly tilted, clearly recorded by a child trying to keep the tablet hidden. But the audio was unmistakable. Caleb's voice, low and menacing. "You need to tell the judge your mother leaves you alone. Say you're scared when she works nights." "But that's not true," Phoenix's small voice responded, the sound of something slamming, a door or perhaps a hand on a table. "I don't care. Do you want to live in that dump forever? Your mother is a nobody." Diane's voice joined in. "Just coach her better, Caleb." "She's 7, for God's sake. She'll say whatever we tell her to. Not if she keeps talking about wanting her mother." I watched 3 videos, each worse than the last. In the final one, Caleb could be seen pacing, ranting about me, while Diane sat at a vanity applying night cream. "Phoenix is our ticket to destroying Jade," he said. "Once we get custody, we can move to the San Francisco office and leave all this behind." "What about Phoenix?" Diane asked casually. "There are excellent boarding schools in Switzerland," Caleb replied. "Problem solved." When the videos ended, I pulled Phoenix into my arms, feeling her small body trembling against mine. "I'm sorry, Mommy," she sobbed. "I know I'm not supposed to record people." "No, sweetheart," I whispered into her hair. "You did exactly the right thing." The next morning, I called in sick to work and made 2 crucial phone calls. The first was to my sister Mia. "I need a lawyer," I said. "Not just any lawyer, someone who will fight like hell." An hour later, I was sitting across from Rachel Okafor, a family court attorney Elena had recommended. I'd expected someone older, but Rachel's youthful energy was matched by the fierce intelligence in her eyes. "Let me see the videos," she said after I explained the situation. Rachel watched silently, taking notes, her expression growing darker with each passing minute. In most states, recordings made by a child in their own home may be admissible, especially when documenting potential emotional abuse, she said finally. "But we need to approach this carefully. The judge might view this as you manipulating Phoenix." "I didn't know anything about the videos until last night," I insisted. Rachel nodded. "I believe you, and I think Judge Rivera will too. But we need to prepare Phoenix. If we use these videos, she may need to answer questions about them." "She's only 7, I protested. "Exactly why this evidence is so powerful," Rachel replied. "No 7-year-old should have to resort to secretly recording their parent to be heard. Phoenix made these recordings on her own because she was scared. That speaks volumes." That evening, Phoenix and I sat at our kitchen table, sharing hot chocolate as I tried to explain what would happen next. "The videos you took might help us in court," I said gently, "but that means the judge might ask you some questions about them." Phoenix stirred her marshmallows thoughtfully. "Will Daddy be there?" "Yes, but he can't hurt you. I'll be there too, and Rachel." She considered this, then looked up with those solemn eyes that always seemed older than her years. "I'm not scared of questions. I'm scared of going back to his house." "That's why we're doing this," I assured her, "so you don't have to be scared anymore." The night before the final hearing, I tucked Phoenix into bed with extra stories and kisses. "Remember," I told her, "no matter what happens tomorrow, you did nothing wrong, and I am so, so proud of you for being brave." Phoenix hugged Mr. Bear tight to her chest. "Mommy?" Miss Diane said little girls should be quiet, but sometimes being quiet means nobody hears you when you need help. In that moment, I saw a strength in my daughter that I hadn't fully recognized before. She wasn't just a victim in this situation, she was finding her voice, determined to be heard. As I turned out the light, Phoenix's small voice followed me into the hallway. "We're going to win, Mommy. The truth is on our iPad." The morning of the final hearing arrived with a heavy downpour that matched the weight in my chest. Phoenix insisted on wearing her favorite blue dress with the silver stars, the one she said made her feel brave. Rachel met us in the courthouse lobby, her expression confident but serious. "Remember what we discussed," she told Phoenix, kneeling to her eye level. "Just tell the truth when you're asked a question. You don't need to say anything more or less than that." Phoenix nodded solemnly. "I practiced with Mr. Bear." The courtroom felt smaller today, more crowded. Caleb sat beside Ms. Winters, his posture relaxed, tailored suit immaculate as always. When he saw Phoenix, he flashed her a wide smile that never reached his eyes. She gripped my hand tighter. Judge Rivera entered, and the proceedings began with Ms. Winters delivering her closing argument. "Your Honor, Mr. Sullivan has demonstrated consistent financial stability and the ability to provide exceptional educational and developmental opportunities for Phoenix. Ms. Roberts, while clearly caring for her daughter, simply cannot offer the same advantages with her limited resources and problematic schedule." Rachel's rebuttal was measured but passionate, emphasizing the stable home I'd created for Phoenix despite challenges, the consistent routine we maintained, and my dedication to her emotional well-being. Judge Rivera listened with an impassive expression, occasionally jotting notes. When both attorneys finished, he looked directly at me. "Ms. Roberts, while I appreciate your efforts as a single mother, I must consider what environment would best serve Phoenix's development. Why would a child want to stay with her mother when her father can provide so many more opportunities?" The question hung in the air, revealing his leaning. Caleb smirked slightly, and Ms. Winters gave a small, satisfied nod. That's when Phoenix let go of my hand and stood up. "Excuse me," she said, her voice small but clear in the hushed courtroom. "I brought the video of what he does at night." Judge Rivera blinked, clearly surprised at being addressed by a 7-year-old. "Young lady, this isn't—" Phoenix has evidence she recorded herself that's relevant to these proceedings, Your Honor. Rachel interjected quickly. We've submitted it as Exhibit D. The court hasn't reviewed any videos, Ms. Winters objected immediately. Because you filed a motion to exclude them without viewing the content, Rachel countered. We're asking the court to consider Phoenix's own documentation of her experiences in her father's home. Judge Rivera frowned. Approach the bench. As the attorneys conferred with the judge, Caleb's eyes fixed on Phoenix with an intensity that made me shift protectively closer to her. What video? He hissed across the aisle. What did you do? Phoenix didn't answer, but she didn't cower either. After several tense minutes, Judge Rivera spoke. The court will view the submitted recordings in chambers. We'll take a 30-minute recess. Phoenix and I waited in a small conference room with Rachel. My daughter colored quietly in a book she'd brought, seemingly calmer than I felt. When the bailiff called us back, I noticed an immediate change in the courtroom atmosphere. Judge Rivera's formerly neutral expression had hardened. He looked at Caleb with undisguised contempt. Having reviewed the evidence, this court finds the behavior exhibited by Mr. Sullivan toward his daughter disturbing and inappropriate. The recordings clearly show attempts to manipulate a minor into providing false testimony and discuss plans that prioritize using the child as a weapon against her mother, rather than considering her well-being. Caleb's face flushed deep red. Those recordings were taken illegally. She's a child. She was coached. Mr. Sullivan. Judge Rivera's voice cut through Caleb's protest like a blade. I suggest you remain silent. The authenticity of these recordings is not in question. The child's unscripted responses to your prompting make it abundantly clear she was not coached. He turned to Phoenix, his tone gentling. Young lady, did anyone tell you to make these recordings? Phoenix shook her head. No, sir. I just wanted someone to believe me. Judge Rivera nodded, then looked back at his notes. This court awards full physical and legal custody to Jade Roberts. Mr. Sullivan will have supervised visitation only, pending completion of parenting classes and anger management therapy. Ms. Winters began to object, but Caleb was already on his feet. This is ridiculous, he shouted. She's manipulated everyone with these doctored videos. Phoenix, tell them you were lying. The bailiff moved toward Caleb as his voice rose, but Phoenix didn't flinch. Instead, she looked directly at her father for what felt like the first time since the hearings began. I didn't lie, Daddy, she said simply. The tablet you gave me records really good videos. The courtroom fell silent again, but this time, the silence felt like vindication. As we left the courthouse, rain still falling softly outside, Phoenix looked up at me with a small smile. Can we have pancakes for dinner? She asked, as if we hadn't just been through one of the most intense experiences of our lives. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. We can have pancakes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you want. Phoenix slipped her small hand into mine. I just want to go home. Home. The place where she felt safe. The place where she was heard. The simple truth that had finally silenced all the noise. 2 months after the final hearing, Phoenix and I settled into a new rhythm. The constant fear that had shadowed our lives gradually lifted, replaced by a sense of security we hadn't felt in years. Caleb attended his court-mandated therapy sessions, but his heart wasn't in it. After the third supervised visit, where Phoenix barely spoke to him, he stopped showing up altogether. Last we heard, he and Diane had relocated to San Francisco, just as they'd planned. Minus the daughter they'd tried to use as a pawn. Do you think Daddy will ever come back? Phoenix asked one evening as I tucked her in. I don't know, sweetie, I answered honestly. But what I do know is that you're safe now, and your voice will always be heard in this home. With Rachel's help, we'd secured a protection order that prevented Caleb from making any custody claims for at least 3 years without substantial evidence of change. The relief that came with that legal shield was immeasurable. Elena helped us celebrate with a small party in our apartment complex's community garden. Phoenix wore her brave blue dress and blew out candles on a cake that read, Our Brave Girl, in wobbly frosting letters. I've been thinking, Elena said to me as we watched Phoenix teach the other children a game she'd invented. You should talk to that advocacy center downtown. Your story could help other families. She wasn't wrong. Our experience had opened my eyes to how many parents, particularly those with limited resources, face similar battles. The system wasn't designed to hear small voices, especially against powerful opposition. I started volunteering at the Family Justice Center on my days off, helping other parents navigate the complicated legal system. Phoenix sometimes came along, coloring quietly in the corner, but occasionally offering a shy smile to children who reminded her of herself. Rachel called one Tuesday afternoon as I was preparing for my shift. "You won't believe this," she said. "Judge Rivera has instituted a new protocol for family court cases involving young children. He's calling it the Phoenix Protocol. It ensures children have safe ways to document their experiences in contested custody cases." I glanced at Phoenix, who was setting up her stuffed animals for a tea party on our living room floor. She'd stopped having nightmares. The bedwetting had ceased. Her first-grade teacher reported she was participating in class discussions again, her artwork once more filled with bright colors. "You know," I told Rachel, "Phoenix asked me last night if what happened in court made us famous." Rachel laughed. "What did you tell her?" "I said we weren't famous, but we were heard, and sometimes that's more important." My sister Mia helped me enroll in day classes to finish my nurse practitioner degree, watching Phoenix on the weekends. The schedule was still challenging, but the absence of constant custody battles made everything more manageable. One Sunday evening, while Phoenix and I made our traditional pancakes for dinner, she suddenly looked up from the batter she was stirring. "Mommy, remember when the judge asked why I would want to stay with you instead of Daddy?" I nodded, the memory still sharp despite the months that had passed. "I know I showed the videos instead of answering," she continued thoughtfully, "but I know the real answer now." "What's that, sweetheart?" She smiled, a gap where her two front teeth had recently fallen out. "Because you listened when I was quiet, and you believed me when I finally spoke up." I pulled her into a hug, pancake batter forgotten. In that moment, I understood the most powerful lesson from our ordeal. Truth has its own voice, sometimes a small one, sometimes hidden, but always waiting to be heard. And when that voice finally breaks through, no amount of money, power, or manipulation can silence it again. Phoenix went back to stirring the batter, humming softly to herself. She was just a child again, not a witness, not a victim, not a pawn in someone else's game. That night, as I passed her bedroom on my way to the kitchen, I overheard her talking to Mr. Bear. "And that's how we won, Mr. Bear," she whispered, "because the truth is the strongest superpower of all." I couldn't have said it better myself. I still remember that day in the courtroom when my little Phoenix found her voice. Every time I tell our story, I'm reminded of how far we've come and how many others are still fighting similar battles. If our journey touched your heart today, please hit that like button. It helps our story reach those who might need to hear it most. Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your thoughts and experiences mean so much to me. Subscribe to join our community of truth tellers and supporters. We share new stories every day about real experiences that often go unheard. And if you know someone facing their own custody battle or struggling to be heard, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Before I go, I want to say something directly to anyone who feels small and silenced right now. Your truth matters. Just like Phoenix showed me, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a small voice saying, "I brought the video of what he does at night." Until next time, this is Jade. Thank you for listening to our story.